Hello, anti-novelists, Lilligans, curious onlookers, and friends. Welcome back to this episode of Zettelkasten for Fiction, where imagination finds order. So we've wrapped up talking about building our character team. So I walked you through in part 2 and part 3 drafting your team. So we've just looked at the protagonist, the antagonist, different kinds of antagonists, and the villain. So now that we have some of our key players identified and out of the way, I'm going to talk you through some of the material in Chapter 7. Chapter 7 is Forms of Short Fiction, and it falls under Part 4, which is the foundations of the story, both short and long form. So this is where I get to take you through some of the key aspects of how you can write a story. I'm not making the assumption when I'm writing this book for you, Zettelkasten for Fiction, that any of you necessarily are married to the idea of writing a novel. You don't have to be. The Zettelkasten for Fiction is such a great tool because you can use your notebook literally to write anything. Nicholas Luhmann himself started using the notebooks because he was an academic. He was writing books and academic papers, and he was extremely crazy prolific. So I know that works. But when you make the application to fiction, things change a little bit in the details, but the structure and the utility are exactly the same. So in this section of videos, we're going to talk about what is in Chapter 7. And that chapter is all of the short forms of fiction. Did you know there's like 16 of them? It's crazy how many options there are for short fiction today. Some of this has grown out of a need for brevity because of the platforms where these things are appearing, like Twitter, for example. Did you know there's actually something called Twitterature, which is literally a story told 140 characters at a time? How cool is that? There's something called a 6-word story, which is exactly what it sounds like. It's a 6-word story. There's a very famous example that I make reference to in the book that is mistakenly attributed to Ernest Hemingway. He did not write it, but he gets the credit, so that's okay. I'm with Hemingway 100%. But yeah, tell a story in 6 words. How much fun is that? And then there's all kinds of other forms of microfiction, flash fiction, just cool little truncated segments of fiction writing that provide a complete story, but in a very bite-sized piece. So that's what we're going to look at in the next section of videos, is I'm going to walk you through some of these micro or shorter fiction forms and show you how your Zettelkasten can apply equally to creating those stories as well as the novella and the novel, which are the more traditional forms of fiction. So buckle up and stay tuned. I will be launching that first video out here shortly, and we will take a look at how you can use the Zettelkasten for short fiction. I'll see you next time.